Hello, and welcome to Escaping Dystopia. This is episode 108. It's August 4th, 2020. This episode is entitled 90 Ways to Trash Your Democracy. I don't know if it's going to be exactly 90 that I'm going to cover today, but there's a few of them. The last few days, again, like the days before them, have been difficult. We are noticing some weird trends. We'll cover a couple things that happened today. Let me make sure that sound is working okay for us. Alright, looking good there, so that's nice. There was today something that I had never seen before on video. In Lebanon, there was what they thought was a fireworks factory fire that turned into, and then it exploded, like full on, big time exploded. Let's put this here, and then I can keep an eye out for comments. We will mute that, and then if I see comments, I guess they'll throw there, and then I can put mine there. Alright. Ready to go! I'm so well prepared, I know. Anyway. Big explosion today. I think what I've seen so far, there were some tweets from some of the Interior Ministry. Apparently they had confiscated several thousand pounds of ammonium nitrate. There was some fireworks there too, because you could see in the fire before it exploded some regular poppings. And then the big explosion happens. There's lots of video of it because people had their cell phones out and they were videotaping the fire before the big explosion. The big explosion, there were thousands of people hurt today. We'll see what the casualties are. I kind of made a little bit light of it when I thought it was a firework explosion, but then saw some of the other stuff, and a whole part of the city was devastated. We'll see what happens on that, but the video, it did show kind of, and this is one thing that's always annoyed me about some of the movies, Independence Day being, and I linked this previously, being one of the worst. The amount of time that you have to react to some of these things, especially an explosion, and I'll link this here in the comments, is negligible. I mean, from the time, and you could watch the fire and then you can see the explosion, you essentially have time to go, holy, and it's there, right? This notion that you're gonna run, get out of the car, go, jump. No, there's none of that. Once the explosion happens, again, it's just, and you can see it in these video clips. It's super intense. So we'll see how that looks. The rest of we'll have some more news on that later in the week. Did I just screw up my thing that I had? I did. I'm so bad at things. So, what else happened today in the last few days? Football in cases. Oh, man. I wish we could do sports. I really, really do wish we could do sports. I don't think we're going to be able to do sports. I had some pictures today of the high schools in Georgia. Yeah, that's the other thing we have to talk about. And I don't think it's gonna happen. The Big 10, announced that they were gonna do a 10-game schedule this year. The SEC is getting together to do some stuff. The Pac-12 players put out a statement with a number of demands. The school started in Georgia this week. Georgia, I was looking at the case. I've got a friend who posts some pretty consistent case numbers from Georgia. And they're looking at high 3,000, 35, 4,000 cases a day for the last week. I think that's going to skyrocket. We'll see. I mean, we're going to do a bunch of these really disturbing social experiments over the next few weeks. With that being said, the poll numbers continue to be pretty consistent. Donald is losing wildly. Oh my God. So there was this interview. Let me post this in here. This is the other big news for today. With Donald on Axios, where he sat down with a real journalist. One of the things that he has not done very many times during his entire presidency is sit down with a real journalist. They had to make special rules for the press briefings where people couldn't ask follow-up questions because his answers are so ridiculous that even a simple follow-up exposes that there's nothing there. And that's what happened with this interview with, what is his name? Swan? Eric Swan, maybe? Let me see. Jonathan Swan. And he is, I believe, English or Australian. Sorry. He's got a fun accent, and he gets to ask him questions that I guess other people can't. I mean, I don't think it would be hard to sit down with a guy and expose him at all, because he's ridiculous. But the interview had a few things that are going to continue to make headlines as people watch it. It was about 30 minutes. Anybody who's on the fence about what this guy's mental state is should watch this. He's really just has a very hard time building a whole thought and completing it. His answers regarding the deaths from the virus are incomprehensible, trying to point to the notion that we have so many cases, but these people recover, but all these deaths, and it's like, but you're missing the point here, that all these cases are part of what's happening, and all these deaths are bad. He even again wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. I don't know what's going on with the Q people right now, because that's been one of those things that this has been part of the dystopian nature of 2020. That, again, this conspiracy theory about this government-run and approved sex ring that's out there. And they have the people in custody who are running it, and the president is wishing them well, and the whole conspiracy is that he's about to arrest all these Democrats for being a part of it. And by the way, I guess Bill Richardson is one of those. He's a Democrat on. I hope I haven't seen his name in the news, which is very odd. Alan Dershowitz was another one of the lawyers that's all the time on the news. One of the things that has happened with how crappy our news media is nowadays is Donald does just dominate the headlines with every tweet and every BS thing, and it's hard to keep track of what's going on. That being said, those tweets sometimes are real and can lead to real things. I'm going to share this about something else here, which is that the Department of Homeland Security is starting to try and tie the anti-fascist movement, Antifa, to foreign actors to then designate them as a foreign terrorist organization. This way you can basically treat American citizens like they're foreign terrorists. If, in the event that Donald wins again, somehow with severe election malfeasance, which is not at all unlikely, the protests would get really bad, and you would see the government turn very quickly on the people with the Department of Homeland Security. We'll see what Biden is able to do with that. So, the other big thing that came out today was the Census Bureau, and I'll share this real quick. The Census Bureau is ending their count early. Their door-to-door, count everybody, chase them all down thing. They had originally, earlier in April of this year, asked for a 4 months extension, right, to go beyond the end of the year, which was the natural deadline via the Constitution. Basically calls for it to be done every 10 years on that 10th year to be complete by the end of the year. Now they're going to give Donald the numbers before the end of the year. Donald has specifically asked them to not count non-citizens in the census. The Constitution, again, is crystal clear that you're to count persons in each territory. Citizenship status is not a consideration for the census. It's not supposed to be. It's used for apportionment of legislatures and a number of other things. It becomes the baseline for where people are. Now, we do update it through the decade over the years, but having a bad number as the baseline is really dangerous. And we're in this situation too where this, and I hate to say it, and I don't want to make people feel bad, but there's a pretty decent chance that even if Donald loses on the election on the day of, or within a couple days as they count a few more votes, the few months after that are going to be extremely chaotic. Him as a lame duck is going to be a very odd place for the country. So we'll get to that if we get to that. But one of the things that might come through that time is the census, because it's in that period where it's supposed to be certified. And he could end up trying to certify populations that are lower than vote counts. There's all sorts of weird things that could happen from here. The TikTok thing, this is really odd as well. I've got to stop with the ums. I'm sorry if those are annoying. If anybody ever watches this. I know it's late. It's very late. It was a long day. Forcing TikTok to be sold is what it is. Trying to claim that somehow the Treasury is supposed to get a kickback finder's fee for forcing the sale is a new level of absurd. There are some really good discussions to be had about... Oh, sorry. Actually, what I shared was a little bit different notion. It was one of the things that... And this is actually even scary, because this isn't even saying, oh, you have to sell this company and we get a cut of it. This is something else that I just shared, was about this quick video where Donald was giving this speech to the National Police Organization and was the... sorry, what is the exact... it's on here... National Association of Police Organizations, and basically they were asking about how to respond to protests when they have mayors and executives of their local jurisdictions that don't feel they should be as forceful, right? And Donald saying, well, I've got your back. Above that, don't listen to those pansy-ass people in charge of you. And that kind of sentiment that, yeah, well, ultimately it's my decision and I say you can do what you want, it's extremely dangerous for a country. That's not how our country's supposed to work. It's the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. 13 members of St. Louis Cardinals test positive for COVID. Baseball has been trying to open up a little bit more than some of the other stuff. They did it with some fanfare. My comment on that was pretty much silliness. I don't think we're going to be able to do this until we get it under control, and it's not under control, as Donald says that we should be. In Colorado, where I live, we do vote by mail for all of our primaries and elections. I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. You get a ballot in the mail. You get a voter guide. You get time to do it. We generally don't actually send ours back by the mail because, whatever. I go and drop them off. There's a ballot box a couple miles away. We've seen voter participation rates in the 70s around here since I've moved up here. That's how all the elections have been since we've been here. I don't get the attacks on it from the president. He blew that away today too. Oh my God. So let me find this real quick. Because again, his tweets don't matter, but again, part of this is a problem, right? Florida also does absentee vote by mail balloting. So here's the thing. He says it's okay to do in Florida, but not other places. And what has happened over the last little bit is that they've started to see Republicans saying that they're not going to vote by mail. They don't trust it. The problem with, of course, that sentiment is that vote by mail is going to be mostly how this election is done because there's a pandemic still raging across the country. So a lot of people are really concerned about the Postal Service. I've talked about this as well, and how they might try and slow down mail delivery to have problems with ballots. We'll see how that all plays out, and I'll cover that when it starts to happen. But the idea that he's been going after vote by mail, mail-in voting, absentee voting, these whole systems, and then they realized that, wait, this is going to really kill all the other Republicans. So then he had to reverse today and say, oh, it's okay to do in Florida. And he specifically says it's okay because there's a Republican governor there. And it's just so obviously partisan and just like inept. Apparently they sent out an email too about the masks. And they reversed positions on that, and now masks are good and manly, which, I mean, is true, and it's great that he's doing that. Yes, the president went golfing this last weekend as a few thousand people died. One of the things that's been really disturbing about the way that they've been tracking and presenting the numbers for deaths and even cases is they stopped accepting data at 12 o'clock at noon on Friday. I'm not making this up. It's on the CDC side. I've taken screenshots and shared this. So you see these weird constant spikes in... let me see if I can find one. I'll link it real quick. And if you look at it by day, you see these drops every weekend. And it's really disturbing. By the way, the CDC's website, you can't really get a good by-day count. It's really disturbing. And apparently a lot of people are also, they switched over that data collection from, that was the hospital data, to HHS, which has a political appointee in control of it. Now people don't know what the hospitals are looking like how many people are in the hospitals, what hospital capacity is. These numbers are not they're not there anymore. They're not working, and people aren't reporting on them because in these southern states they've really just gone off the charts. And especially in places like Georgia, like I said, they're already having these high number of cases, and they're about to go through the roof. Now, a lot of folks have been pointing at New York and New Jersey as places where the death toll was way higher than these lower places. But again, a lot of that had to do with the population density. If you have those people there and there's no kind of controls, you're going to get those numbers. It's just a matter of time. Let me see. Oh, there we go. New daily cases by country. There we go. Yeah, so this has, and I'll post this in here. This is it, actually. I can take a quick screenshot and I'll post it in there. This is just really disturbing because the way, and you'll see these spikes, and the way this graph looks, it shouldn't be spiky like this. And the only reason it is because they're not taking data on the weekends. Let's see, I think I can put that in here. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, I can't put photos in. Well, that's annoying. Oh, well. Okay, well, that is what it is. Shoot. Anyway, I will link to this. You can look at the daily new deaths in the U.S. and look at that graph, and you'll see that it's spiky by day because they don't take numbers on the weekends, and I think they backtrack into it. It's really weird how they're doing stuff, to the point that me, as a data professional, finds it disturbing. There has been, with the PPP stuff, I'll throw this in, the link, the loans. This was a raiding of the Treasury to the tune of $500 billion. A lot of this went to charter schools, private schools, right-wing think tanks. Grover Norquist's anti-tax group, the Ayn Rand Institute, all got bailouts from this thing. Pretty much every connected political group did, and then all these actual small businesses were too slow to get the money. Lord & Taylor, by the way, declared bankruptcy. This is the U.S.'s oldest department store. They've been aching for a long time. Like I said, the retail apocalypse has been upon us. Been brewing for a while. I have reached my free article limit. All right, Bloomberg, nothing more for you then. David Brin is a sci-fi author, and he did this good analysis that's been true for a while. I'll link it here in the thing. And it shows how the economy tends to do better under Democratic leadership. And people are like, oh, that's just partisan. It's not really partisan. It's the way the data has worked over and over and over and over again. And it's looking at the federal debt and how it grows under Republicans and then has shrunk under Democrats. And we're going to have, if we have a switch over again, right? And if this plays out and Biden takes over, we're going to see a $4 trillion deficit for this year. Our debt's going to skyrocket. I talked about in the last show, our debt to GDP ratio is going to get nearly unsustainable. And Republicans are going to turn around and blame Biden for it. And it's just so frustrating, because this is one of those forces that can truly, destroy our society if we don't get it under control. Oh, there was this obituary that's been making the rounds a bit. I'll link it here. They blame Donald and Abbott down in Texas directly for the death of their family member. It was one of those, it's not an online thing. Basically saying he had a pretty vicious kind of death and died by himself. So now it's making the rounds. You're going to see some more of these. This is part of what's just destroying Donald's popularity, because it's just there's 1,000 people dying every day, even on the weekends when they're not counting them. And his response in this interview was essentially, it is what it is. I'll say here, I'll share this one too. His campaign is flailing because it just doesn't... People know who Biden is, right? So it's not really doing much to try and trash him. Here's that thing about their Trump campaign doing the masks, finally. Great job, guys. Right on it! This is another speculation, again, why they're trying to throw this thing a month early. It doesn't make sense. And this is, I think we're going to have to redo the census. Jonathan Swan. All right, making some progress. Biden, like I said, they're flailing. Biden's ahead in North Carolina right now. Excuse me. The race is tight in Georgia. So you'll see here, if Georgia and a lot of the country is starting to realize that we opened up too soon, and that's causing that double dip, what they think is a double spike, which was actually just the first wave hitting the places that it hadn't hit yet. We needed to stay shut down for another month to let everything totally calm down after it was already dominating New York, but we did not. So a lot of people are seeing that now, and it's starting to become clear that we really screwed that up pretty bad. Here is the article talking about how this is starting to look like a Republican crisis for mail-in voting. If you want to read about that too, need to do a little bit better organization, obviously, right? Donald falsely claims his approval is higher than Obama at this point in time. This has been one of those constant lies. His just ego is so fragile. The Department of Justice came out and mentioned that all their subpoenas for Donald's investigations were cool. They had a couple material errors, which would be like a name being wrong. Like usually a material thing is actually a big deal, but they said that their own stuff was okay. The FISA situation is really an interesting one because it's the Foreign Intelligence Services Act, I think. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. And what it is people who are in communication with other country or things like that to monitor their communications. It's got a secret court. It's got a bunch of secret stuff because it's very involved with signal intelligence and our intelligence services. And the kind of stuff that, literally does help keep our country safe and makes it less safe the more that it's known. So, anyway, we have these secret courts, and basically they were listening into conversations with people on the Trump campaign and their contacts in Russia. This is what the guy got in trouble for, because you're not supposed to do that, and you're supposed to declare yourself as a foreign agent if you're going to act like one. Democrats warn GOP, don't fill a Supreme Court vacancy in 2020 or we'll retaliate. You damn skippy kids. We've already seen the Republicans in the Senate say, and I think Joni Ernst was on record, and Cornyn and McConnell for sure, well, if there's a Supreme Court opening, we'll have to fill it. I mean, that's our job, right? And I mean, if Donald's still president, the people picked him, even if it was a minority of the people. And so, anyway, the Republicans will force through another Supreme Court judge if something happens with RBG over the next few months or something else, despite their whole Merrick Garland stealing a seat thing. If they do anything, I am fully supportive of Democrats forcing through a filibusterable change to the number of people on the Supreme Court. Seeing what's been happening over the last few years, I am full on a support of a little bit more radical approaches to adjusting the way things work. Like Obama said the other day at the Lewis funeral, maybe it's time to really adjust this. Now again, this will come back. This is what happened as they started to remove the filibuster. But then McConnell got rid of the filibuster on Supreme Court justices. And that really, for all intents and purposes, that really got rid of it. And I guarantee you, had the Republicans held on to the House, he would have gotten rid of the filibuster in the Senate, too. And they would have forced through a ton of stuff. And I think Democrats in Washington definitely have realized that that's what they're dealing with now. And so they're trying to be a little bit more clear on this, like, hey guys, if you guys want to play this game, we can do it. And I don't think you're going to win. This whole regional party that you're headed toward might be a problem. Let's see. Inside the Project Veritas plan to steal the election. Yeah, there's going to be something that's going to come out from these wackadoodles some point over the next few weeks, because that's what they do. They got paid millions of dollars by some rich jerks to build this, so we'll see how that goes. They're going to have to, because, like I said, the projections now, basically in what's called a lean democratic state, have over 270 electoral college votes for Biden right now. So it's going to have to switch right now. Colorado went from lean Dem to likely Dem. Pennsylvania from toss-up to lean Dem. New Hampshire, Nevada, Florida, all these have gone to lean Dem. And then Georgia went from lean GOP to toss-up. That's kind of how their scale goes. Likely, lean, toss-up, lean, likely. So that means usually that shows that the polling's outside the margin of error, which means that it's more likely than not on if, the election were to be held, right? So, ooh, that's a fun map. That one I just linked on NPR is starting to mess with their, good job, guys. They have an electoral weight histogram, cartogram, I guess, actually. My grams, I'm a little bit fuzzy on those once it gets past midnight. It has a geography map, which are great and all, but having the electoral weight map is also much more interesting because that shows you why, having these solid California and New York and New Jersey as Democratic states, and why these swing states that he needed so badly now are just being gone, and Florida really blows it away, because outside of Texas, that's really the biggest Republican prize. And without that, you can see, if you click on the one, I just put the link there for NPR, if you click on the electoral weight version of that map, you'll see how the GOP loses and becomes this southern regional party if they get crushed here and can't compete in Colorado and Nevada, right? And just lose anything outside of this stuff. Which essentially becomes like the very sparsely populated West and the South. Outside of, Texas becomes their biggest battleground. And if that's the case, demographically in Texas, man, they are just so wildly screwed going into the future. The party of Trump doesn't have a whole lot of future in the state of Texas. The president's son's school is going to delay classes until October. Seems a bit hypocritical to force everyone else back. The idea, I think, behind the whole school restarting thing was to act like everything was normal, which it's not. And we haven't done that, and then to kind of force that, and then get the economy, but all of that has fallen to pieces because RNA don't care. All right. There we go. We did that one. TikTok, Microsoft. I still don't quite understand this whole thing, but we'll get there, I guess. Cuccinelli relaxed oversight at DHS office. So there was a story that came out over the last few days about how these people had been building these lists of journalists. And the question was, how could that have happened? And they fired the person who was doing it, kind of. But then it turns out that the reason why this was allowed was because of a rule change that somebody else done. So what would have been the normal kind of oversight that happens was not happening. So now this thing goes a little bit further than it could have gone. Again, without a return to normalcy, without a return to the rule of law, all of these things are going to get quite worse. All right, let's see here. What are we doing next? Here's some more background reading on the... This was actually just for one state. But just kind of how many people got the PPP loans that were involved and knew who to talk to and how to get the right form in. They're talking now about also forgiving all this stuff from the early thing. So this whole dumping of cash to a lot of these politically connected firms is going to kind of stick. Oh, man. This was another one from the last couple days. And this is where we're at now with there's been a consistent thing to not follow how the Constitution requires that political appointees be approved by the Senate. The whole point again here is advice and consent, as it's called in the Constitution, to where, you need to at least have these people vet the people who are going to be carrying out the powers of the people. And I just linked to another one how this guy who was such a problematic nominee that he withdrew his name, so he just appointed him to do the job anyway for the Department of Defense. And the guy in question is this guy who's been posting a bunch of Islamophobic troll crap. It's just so sad to keep seeing these things come up. Moving along. Arizona superintendent on safely opening schools. This is fantasy. I just don't know how we can possibly do that in a way that's going to work. So we'll see over the next couple weeks if I get proven totally wrong. I'd love it. Kids can go back. No problems. Let's do that. I don't think it's going to happen. All right, let's see. Republican governor skipping Republican convention. Texas governor skipping the Republican convention. Why would you go to any of this stuff? So again, all canceled. It's probably going to be pretty virtual for Biden's as well, which I think everybody's fine with that. Matthew Stafford on COVID-19 list. Stafford is the starting football player for the Detroit Lions. I like him. I think he's a great player. The problem, again, we've seen is when people who... this is the question. You don't know if this is a direct positive test, asymptomatic, if that's the case, symptomatic, or just potential exposure and quarantine. For football, I don't think we're going to have football this year. I guess we'll try, and then we'll see what happens. This is so surreal. Over and over and over again. All right. We're going to finish with this one because I've wanted to link this for a little while. We're kind of clearing some older stuff now. So now we're kind of current. We'll get some other stuff too. There's a few other ones. This was a Facebook audit because again, racial justice has been big in the news because we need to get there now. Facebook is not very good about that stuff. They commissioned a third-party report to identify how they were doing, and that report came out. I just linked it. Basically said, you guys suck at this. What are you doing? I don't think they're going to get better, and so I need to, of course, transition to some other platform, I think a little bit easier. The tools for it are great, but the way that some of their other stuff is used, of course, is not so great. And the problem is that, again, you can hear, and I responded the other day when he did some testimony, but you don't want to empower everybody with these platforms and this technology and these tools, because some of them have goals that are not compatible with the morals that we claim to have. And those two things, the conflict in resolving that, Facebook has done a poor job of doing so in a manner that makes it clear that anything other than being the most powerful and having the most money is important. And that's what falls down. We'll see how quickly they could. I think they probably already would have been replaced to some degree. They would have shown a lot more damage financially without having the ability to competitively purchase things, which perhaps they'll lose with some new regulations, and perhaps all of that will change. Anyway, kind of a little sedated show. I wanted to catch up to our daily stuff. I think I'm close now there, which feels good about that. It's been a while. So from here then, that means that when I can do some daily shows, I'll be doing pretty topical stuff instead of trying to catch up for a week or more. Which also means I'll probably be doing a little bit more trivial stuff. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, if anybody has any other feedback for how we're doing, let me know. I try and respond. I try and adjust if I can. I'll try and do it at a more reasonable hour if people want to watch, but whatever. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it. It's also old dad protection. It's kind of a weird thing. Got some young kiddos, got one on the way. I'm a little older. Haven't been the best about treating my body well. So there's a good chance they might not get to see me grown up. So at the very least, they'll get to watch these and see how pissed off I was at this bullshit. Oh, well, it's all good. So in that sense, Mags, River, Titus, love you guys so much. And that's one of the things that makes me want to keep fighting for you. Make it better so we can have a better world that makes a little bit more sense. And some of the sacrifices that we have to make to get there are going to be a little bit realer, I'm afraid. We'll see how that plays out. All right, good night, y'all. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later. 90 days or so until we make a big decision. Should be fun. I think we can do the right thing. I bet we can. All right, have a good night. Take care.